After failing to win a game in 2015, Central Florida has won 13 of their last 20 and have started year 2 of the Scott Frost era at 7-0. Can the Knights not only win the AAC but also get a top 5 Group of 5 bowl bid? We'll discuss those possibilities and just how Scott Frost has been able to change the direction of the program this fast as we go one-on-one with Mark Daniels, the Director of Broadcasting and the voice of the Knights for Central Florida football, on the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma. All right, it's November 2nd, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to the OFN Meeting Room as we talk UCF football with Mark Daniels. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Mark. So, wow, 23 years. That is a very long time to be talking football with one program. How'd you do it?
My first snap was Dante Culpepper's first snap back in 1995. So
cool.
That was when UCF was making its transition year from 1AA to Division I. So I've seen UCF be an independent in 1AA, be an independent in Division I, then become a member of the MAC, and become a member of Conference USA, then be in the Big East for about a week, and then become an initial member of the Americans. So seen a lot of growth, and when I started at UCF calling games, we had about 23,000 students, and this fall semester we have a country-leading 66,000 students. So
awesome.
Things have changed a bit.
Quite a bit. So then tell me, I guess right off the bat with Scott Frost, because all the rumors are starting. Of course, they're starting with the Gators. I can imagine that they've been out there with Nebraska, considering their struggles. When you get a program like this, I spoke a couple weeks ago. Actually, I think it was last week. We were talking Iowa State football and about Matt Campbell and how you got to try to keep him around. So, is it at all possible to keep Scott Frost around, or is it just going to be one of those situations that the more success that they have there, the faster he'll leave?
Well, there's a couple different ways of looking at it. Look, George O'Leary had a great run as a coach at UCF, and I think after O'Leary was at UCF for a couple of years, there was a sense that he wasn't likely going to leave the program to go someplace else because of his age. And so that was not the concern that UCF had. And, people thought that Coach O'Leary was going to retire after the Fiesta Bowl season in 2013. It's a little bit different with Scott because he's obviously very young in his head coaching career. Look, it's a very valid question whether it's Nebraska or Florida about what those programs could offer. In the 2+ years I've got to know Scott, he's a little bit of a different guy. There are things that motivate him that may be different than what we in the media or fans think. He's done a tremendous job at UCF. He's paid over $2 million to coach at UCF, and you can live a good life in Orlando, Florida. There's some benefits to living here. I think UCF is looking at opportunities to not just increase Scott's pay, but they started what's called an excellence fund, which publicly stated what the goal was. It was to generate $7.5 million over a period of years to spread that out to pay assistant coaches. There's tremendous facilities that are being built on top of what UCF has now, and UCF's facilities are as good as most mid-level Power Fives, if not better. So the university's doing things that I think it feels like would make Scott say, hey, I like it here. And I think those are things it's a guarantee that Scott's going to leave for any of these jobs. I don't think know him well enough. Again, I know Scott better than most. I wouldn't call him a close friend in the sense that he's very private. We get along great. I enjoy working with him. But those that think Scott will jump at the first opportunity, I'm not quite sure. He had opportunities before choosing to come to UCF and felt this was a special place to go. I think he feels it's incredibly easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy, but it's easier to recruit here because of the Florida talent.
Sure.
And I think he likes what he's building. And I think there may be something to trying to build something that hadn't been done before. Is it Scott's last job? I don't know that. I can understand why people think it would not. But I don't think it's as simple as people think that, well, if Florida or Nebraska offers, he's absolutely leaving. I would not at all be surprised if Scott decides to stay because I think he loves his team. And he told people publicly and privately he thought 2018 was the special year where most of these guys are going to be juniors and sophomores as opposed to sophomores and freshmen now.
All right, so then there's no reason then for us not to think, and any of the Central Florida fans not to think big and say, hey, why can't Scott Frost be like the Howard Schnellenberger of Central Florida?
Well, he could. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. The landscape much different. I mean, I grew up in South Florida when Howard took over the Miami program. and you had a heck of a lot more independence. I mean, there are plenty of schools that played as independents, and conferences had not expanded to the level that they've expanded. Now, could UCF be a team that plays its way into a Power 5 league, meaning it has a few magical seasons under Scott, and you make conferences go, hey, well, 18th biggest market in the country, projected growth of being top 15, largest market within an NFL team. Sure, and I can make the case for UCF's biggest rival, USF, but I still think the Big 12's made a mistake by not looking at the big picture of those two markets. It's possible.
Okay.
I think it's difficult today just to assume that conferences are going to expand, but no one's forced a league to look at expansion based on performance. I mean, no disrespect to Boise State, who certainly has had a great run, but there's some market conditions that are always going to be against Boise State that doesn't offer the same television package. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. I think Scott might also like the fact that, again, it's easy to recruit here. The facilities are being built, and I think he feels like he could put a team out every year that would contend for the conference title of where they're at. Does that motivate him coaching-wise, as opposed to going up against the best people in the country? I don't know, but I know at the age of 42, he's not in a rush to go anywhere. And the fact that guys like Tony Dungy and Tom Osborne that are big influences on him have pretty much kind of said, if you think it's an assumption, then you don't know him. And I think that's where people in the media, a lot of these rumors are just jumping off stuff that may not be true.
So then the long-term goal then would be not to just build like a mid-level program, but to try to build something special, try to build a team that if you go undefeated, you can play for a national championship, because it's one of the things that I don't like about the system. I still think that this so-called playoff system is just an N1 game. I mean, it's with from 2 teams to 4 teams. That's all it is. I'd like it to at least get to 8. 16 would be the great thing, but that's probably 20 years away, the way things go in the NCAA. But what about that? You look at the schedule. There's probably not that marquee game there, like maybe San Diego State would have had by beating Stanford. But you tell me. I mean, if they go undefeated, they're not going to go to the playoffs, and I don't think that's right. But it is what it is. Do they have that type of schedule in the next year or two, or that team, that non-conference opponent, that if they were to go undefeated, say next year, then that'd be a little bit different?
Well, UCF's schedule the next several years says 2 Power 5 programs. Among schools that are coming up, it's Pitt, it's Stanford, it's North Carolina. And, scheduling sometimes happens years in the past. We played Stanford out in Stanford, the winless season, a couple of years ago. The return game is coming. And it's hard to schedule. I mean, a lot of people now don't want to play UCF. The conference itself, which I still think a lot of people nationally don't understand or respect. I mean, UCF blew out Memphis. It was 40-7 before Memphis scored a touchdown with seconds to go to pad stats. They're top 20 team in the college football playoff ranking. USF has been in the polls. They'll play them at the end of the regular season. Navy's a very good football team. It still may go on to win 9 games. Now, they may not stack up with a formative for strength of schedule as opposed to others, but there's bottom feeder Power 5 programs that wouldn't beat any of the 4 schools I just named. They wouldn't beat UCF, USF, Memphis, or South Florida. So, look, you will have to deal with not being in a power league.
Yeah.
And if you ask me what I think it would take to get to the playoffs, whether it's UCF or somebody else, but I'll take UCF since that's what we're talking. They probably need to run the table this year. Do what Houston did a couple of years ago. Houston blew out FSU in a New Year's Six Bowl. Debut in the top 10 the following season. They blew out Oklahoma, and they were 5th and 6th, but they lost games. You would have to back it up, probably going unbeaten consecutive years and forcing a committee to go, wow, that's a 26-game win streak. Can we leave them out? And who knows what the guarantees are there? And we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, sure.
That's where the system is now.
Yeah. And that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're on the air. This is what they want to hear. Okay, so talk about the talent, because that's the next step, is for Scott Frost to be here long enough so he can recruit some really top-end talent, players that eventually could go to the NFL draft. So we haven't seen that. We won't see that just yet. But tell me, who are the top players on this team that you'd give a shot to possibly get drafted, priority free agents in the next couple of years, somebody that has a chance to be contributing pro?
Well, a lot of people may not know. I'll go back to the Fiesta Bowl team in 2013. 15 guys were on an NFL roster from that team. So UCF's able to recruit.
Yep.
Not staying for 5 or years or so, but there are 15 guys that have been on an NFL roster from that team. Scott Frost got a lot of talented kids that were 2 3-star recruits that people didn't want. Adrian Killens might be the fastest player in college football. Return specialist, running back, wide receiver specialist. scattered a bunch of those kids in Chip Kelly's offense at Oregon, those 5'9", 5'10" kids with incredible speed. UCF's got about 4 of those guys. As far as guys that have NFL talent on the roster this year, probably UCF's entire defensive front will get a chance of not getting drafted to at least be in a roster. Jemias Pittman's a fantastic nose guard and tackle. Tristan Hill will definitely play on Sunday. He's got a year left. And Tony Garrard's the other defensive end. Shaquem Griffin was the defensive player of the year last season. I think some people know his story. He's got one hand. He's Shaquille Griffin's brother, who now is part of the secondary for the Seattle Seahawks. He's a kid that I think will definitely get a chance. UCF's got guys in the secondary. Mike Hughes, who's a third-year player that played in North Carolina once, leads the country in punt returns, 6th in kick returns. He's 3rd in passes defended. Traquan Smith is a 6'3" wide receiver that'll continue the UCF tradition of wide receivers. Guys like Rashad Perriman, guys like Brandon Marshall. He's got 33 touchdowns in 19 games. So there's not a lack of talent. Scott's done a tremendous job. Where now, when you have a season like he's having, he's got kids all over the place that want to come play here, but Scott's going to recruit kids that fit his system, and to a degree kind of laughs at the rating system, which guys like George O'Leary did too, to say, I'll take a 2-star kid that starts 4 years than a 4-star kid that can't start a single season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you're in that situation like Central Florida is, like you said, it's a fertile recruiting ground, and a lot of those kids, sometimes some of the top star guys do go to the bigger schools, but there's so much talent in the area. You just have to have an eye for it. And when the winning comes, the players want to play. They can play right away sometimes at Central Florida if they don't feel like they can get a starting spot at Florida. But you went to Florida. So before I let you go, what do you think about what's going on over there? You graduated Florida.
Well, look, Florida's become an incredibly interesting program for several reasons. Obviously, the success of Coach Spurrier, and then obviously the success of Urban Meyer. And frankly, the last couple of hires haven't worked out. Will Muschamp was from Gainesville, so there was a sense that it would be a good emotional hire. And, after one season, it just didn't work out. Jim McElwain, I just don't ever think connected to Florida fans. Despite winning back-to-back East divisions, I just don't think that fans ever embraced it. And the biggest reason was he didn't deliver an offense that they were waiting for. Came with the hype of, hey, we're going to flung it up and down the field. We're going to score 40, 45 points a game. And it just didn't happen. They won a bunch of games, 25, 17 and 21, 16 and things like that. And then this season became a snowball of events. The quarterback position never developed. The issue of players off the field and the credit card fraud case, I think, had a big impact on their depth. And I'm the same guy that also believes that Will Greer never got in trouble at Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Jim McElwain's still the coach. Florida's a top 10 program, and they would have been scoring 40 points a year. But he left Florida, went to West Virginia, where he's producing, and the Gators have never found a quarterback since then. What they do next, if I was the AD at Florida, I would certainly take a look and consider Scott Frost. I think people easily jump because of what Scott's done here to say he's the top candidate. But I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Strictly, AD, learned about other names of current coaches that would be interested in the Florida job that maybe he didn't think about before this past week. So it's certainly be interesting down here as UCF fans are hopeful. Scott Frost says, hey, this is where I want to be, at least for now. And we'll see if Florida's list of serious candidates is bigger than just Scott. I think it is. But Florida fans want to see scoring. They want to see, and when you have a team in Orlando that's averaging 50 points a game and Florida struggles to score 20, then you get natural assumptions that, hey, let's get that guy.
By the way, is Scott going to make the game tomorrow night?
As you and I speak, his wife has not yet given birth to their first child. Her due date was yesterday. She's doing great. There is a scenario. There's a plane that Scott has, whether he travels out after the team leaves or whatever the scenario is, but he's made it clear he will be there for the birth. And if it happens in the second quarter and he has a chance to get back, he's prepared to leave, and the coaching staff is prepared to do what they need to do. So we'll see if baby helps out by coming today or perhaps only tomorrow. But he and his wife, Ashley, very excited for obviously the special moment of their first child, and we'll see how that plays out this weekend.
Well, good luck tomorrow night. That's a tough road game, and we look forward to hopefully talking to you again in about a month or so, because that South Florida game, even though the Bulls just lost, that's your rivalry game, and it's a Friday night game at home, and if they're still undefeated, boy, will that game be huge.
It is. Both teams still control destiny to claim that New Year's Six slot, even the loss of USF. If they win out, they'll get it. Same deal with Memphis. So the Americans in a good spot to grab that. A lot of big football games still to be played.
Mark, I appreciate it. Great job. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. That's Mark Daniels, again, the voice of Central Florida football. Wow, 23 years. I mean, I've done the whole college football, arena football, high school football thing. It's a fun job. It's a great job. You get to travel. You meet a lot of great people. Especially if you're in one, especially I don't know, big city to small town. And I'm not saying Orlando's in a small town, but compared to say Miami, it is. But it's a nice gig. It is, and if you and Scott and Mark's obviously made a good living at it, and I'm sure whether it's a dream job or not, specifically to be at Central Florida. Maybe the dream job would have been for him as a Florida grad, the Florida job. But how could you not expect it to actually, or feel like it's actually a dream life? It may not be. Maybe it is. I don't know. Perfect job, but it's in the industry. I mean, it doesn't get much better. And I'm sure he's very, very proud of his accomplishments. He should be. And we'll find out because Scott Frost, if he's going to be here for a while. Look, we talked about this, as I mentioned, we talked about this last week. And of course, I thought it was kind of cool when we did talk with Tommy Birch, Des Moines Register sports writer, about Iowa State football. And then Iowa State goes out and beats TCU. So that was nice. Yes, I always like that. And we talked about Matt Campbell and about he's going to be a hot coach now. And look at Iowa State in basketball. Iowa State in basketball, great program. If it wasn't for Kansas, they'd be the dominant team in the Big 12 all these years. So it can be done in basketball. Why can't it be done in football? I think it can be. Tommy thinks it can be. So it's just a matter of, can Matt Campbell stay there? Can Scott Frost stay at Central Florida? Why can't he? That's why I brought up Schnellenberger. You could bring up Bobby Bowden. What were these schools before they got there? Central Florida, right? So it's definitely possible. Look at Kansas State before Snyder. We can go on and on with these examples. That's why I felt as a New Jersey native and a Rutgers guy, with Greg Schiano, nobody thought that school could amount to anything. And they were they went into the top 10 with Greg Schiano. It can be done. But then, you got to keep these guys around. That's the thing. Can you build it up long enough to stay there and win a championship? Because that's to build it up to a point where you can be in the top 10 or top 15, nice. But can you stay there long? And I'm not talking 3-4 years. I'm talking, 7 to 10 years. Scott Frost is young enough. Scott Frost can build a big-time program at Central Florida and still be in the prime of his coaching career if he wants to then go to Nebraska. And I got to tell you, and look, of course, I don't know anything about Scott Frost next to Mark Daniels. But my gut would tell me that Scott Frost wouldn't take any job except for Nebraska. Because if he took the Nebraska job, what is anybody going to say? Even if you're a Central Florida fan, what can you say? But, okay, it's Nebraska. It's his alma mater. It's what are we going to do? That's good for him. That's all we can say, right? If he goes to a different program, to me, then I'd be upset. Oh, come on. Why couldn't you build the program here? But Nebraska, you can't do that. And that's why I think that would be the one spot. I don't think the Florida thing makes any sense. Why? Just because he's coaching right next to Florida? Scott Frost played Nebraska in the Midwest and then got his first gig out west at Oregon. Everybody was kind of surprised in a way. It's like, whoa, he's going to Central Florida? Okay. I guess it is smart knowing the recruiting area. But I don't think Scott Frost decided to take this job because he'd be there for a year or two and leave. But I might be wrong. That's just my gut. So anyway, again, thanks to Mark for coming on the program and joining us here. So, and I wanted him to get on because I know it was really tight to get him on for the show today. But I said, you know what? If I can get him on now, even though I know the schedule's tight for him, I want to get him on now. This way, hopefully, I'll be able to get him on in about a month with that USF game. Okay, so that is going to wrap it up here on the OFN meeting room. Don't forget tomorrow, OFN College Football Preview. We have special guests to help us to preview the huge Big 12 game in Stillwater. Also talk about the rise of Notre Dame football and preview the top games with analysis, trends, injury updates, odds, and picks. Also tomorrow morning, a one-on-one interview with Chuck King, managing editor for FAUOwlsaccess.com, to talk about Lane Kiffin and the Owls. Go to ourlads.com and order a subscription of your choosing, including the 2018 Ourlads NFL Draft Preview brochure that's available right now. And don't forget the best college football depth charts in the biz at ourlads.com. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. We'll see you next time on the Ourlads Football Radio Network, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft.